and I am the Chief of Media at Asamu, which is the Accounting Students Association of Makerere University Business School. Today, I'd like to introduce us to our event and introduce our speakers, recognize our guests, have an opening prayer, and enjoy our event. Our event has the topic, how to effectively prepare for interviews and aptitude tests. Our guest speakers are Ms. Nesta Joan Adoch and Ms. Shivan Karemera. So on our program, we shall go through our program, but for now, I'd like to recognize our partners who have helped us in organizing this meeting. These include FASEC, which is the Fund Africa Students Entrepreneurship Clubs, which is being headed by Ms. Awenyi Catherine. She's the project manager. We shall have BUSA, which is Business Statistics Students Association, headed by Mr. Kenneth. We shall have MOFISA, which is the Makerere University Business School Finance Students Association, headed by Ms. Nisima Patience. She is the president. SICA, which is Students Information and Computing Association, headed by Mr. Cyrus Sumika. He's the president. MUBSPA, finally, which is Makerere University Business School Procurement Association, headed by Dr. Mwaka Derek. On our program, which is shortly going to be shared, we shall have an opening prayer from Charlotte Nisima, one of our some representatives. We shall have a brief communication from our patron, Professor Stephen Nkundabanyanga. We shall have Mr. Mulinde John coming in to introduce and profile our guest speakers. And then we'll have our first guest, who will be Ms. Joan Nesta Adoch, presenting about aptitude tests. We shall have a brief Q&A session of about 10 minutes right after her presentation. Then we shall welcome our next guest speaker, who is Ms. Shivan Karemera, and she'll be presenting how to effectively prepare for interviews. After her presentation, we shall have a Q&A, which is a question and answer session after her presentation. Then we shall have a closing remarks from me, from the guest speaker, along with a vote of thanks from Lynette Komugisha. Thank you. For now, I'd like to invite Ms. Charlotte to give us an opening prayer. Thank you. Okay, so Charlotte Nisima may not be present at the moment, so I'll give us the opening prayer. Loving Father, we thank you for bringing us here today. We thank you for bringing us together on this virtual event. We pray that you give us a very good virtual event. We pray that you enlighten our guest speakers with all the information they'll need to give us the best possible outcome during this virtual event. Loving Father, we thank you for bringing us here this morning, and we thank you for clearing any inconveniences that we might have had. We pray all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So I'd like to briefly have a word from our patron, Professor Stephen Nkundabanyanga, as opening remarks for our virtual event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trevor, for that prayer and for organizing this talk this afternoon, this morning. Am I audible? Can you hear me, please? Just checking.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I think today is the bright moment. It's a bright morning. I want to thank everybody on this call, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to all of you to the mubs virtual students career guidance session on how to effectively prepare for aptitude tests and job interviews. You students, I must tell you, I am very grateful to you for having organized this, particularly you, the student leadership. We take pride in you, and we are happy that you are keeping engaged by your own account, by your own initiative, in addition to the very, very initiatives we always have for you at the mubs leadership. I want to thank you very much for putting this together and such a beautiful and engaging program. I'm very glad you found Shivan Karemera and Joan Nesta Dodge to speak to you about this topic. And also I'm looking ahead for a grateful or fruitful learning today. Shivan and Joan, thank you very much indeed for accepting this role. At mubs, and indeed the mubs community, we don't take this gesture jokingly. It is indeed a honorable gesture, and we thank you wholeheartedly. I sincerely hope that you students, you will enjoy the conference, the talk today, and learn a lot about aptitude tests and how to deal with job interviews. Much of what we teach you at Makerere University Business School may be lacking in content about this practical skill that every graduate or prospective graduate would want to have. So we thank Shivan and Joan for filling this gap and helping our students to learn these soft skills. The student leadership, you heard the president has not yet opened us. So we take these initiatives, very important for you to keep engaged. Make sure you keep engaged, reading a lot. Then now there is the internet, you can always actually read those things you feel you had studied to keep refreshed in mind. And since some of you already have the syllabuses and what have you, so you need to keep reading ahead. Everything that relates to your career, your studies, should actually be read. Whatever you meet on the way, either on the internet, newspapers, everything you feel can help you in your career, try to read as much as possible. Try to get engaged as much as possible. And in this period, try to make sure you get many connections, many important social networks, so that when the lockdown ends for the students, we should be able to start when we are highly refreshed. Thank you for this participation, and I want to wish everybody a nice listening to our great speakers this morning. Thank you. Over to you, Trevor.
Thank you very much, Professor Steven. On our program, we are going to start with Mulinde John, who is going to give us a brief profile of our guest speakers today. John, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I tried sharing my screen, but I'm unable. So I'm going to just take you through as it is. My name is Mulinde John, a second-year student at Makerere University Business School, pursuing Bachelor of Commerce. And I am the Assistant Head of Corporate Affairs at Asamu. And today, I'm taking you through the profiles of our esteemed speakers. The first is Ms. Shivan Karemera, who is the Human Resource Professional at PwC. She currently works with PricewaterhouseCoopers House Limited, and her focus is on building companies' strategies to transform the people's agenda and executing new ways of work to enhance people's experiences. Ms. Karemera builds a workforce of the future and to achieve human capital operational excellence. So as she speaks to us, with over 12 years of experience in human resource, with 7 being in managerial positions, with tremendous in-depth expertise in all aspects of human capital, including creating sustainable value through people, culture, and change, designing compensation and reward strategies, and improving our capital operations. She's a chartered member of the CIPD, which is the Chartered Institute of Personal Development, and has a postgraduate diploma in human resource management and a bachelor's degree in international business. So that is Ms. Shivan Karemera for you. And I'm going to move on to the next speaker, who is Ms. Adoch. Ms. Adoch Joan Nesta, the Human Resource Administrator at RSM East Africa. All of our speakers are established. They have good experiences in these fields. And Ms. Adoch started working in around June 2015 at Seta Parent School as a front desk assistant, performing basic administrative duties. And she later moved up the ladder to Human Resource Officer with Homeland Holdings Limited, a transporting company in Uganda. And there she performed major human resource management roles, ranging from recruitment to appointments to performance management. The journey of growth has made her appreciate the effort needed to steer an organization to a desired direction. And with a certificate of administrative law from the Law Development Center, bachelor's degree in human resource management from Makerere University, we welcome all these speakers and expect the best from them. So ladies and gentlemen, those are our esteemed speakers for you. And I would like to give the floor back to the moderator to invite our speakers.
So before I invite our first guest speaker, who is Ms. Shivan Karemera, I'd like to recognize the presence of our guild president, Mr. Ogwang Robinson. Thank you very much for attending our call. And now I'd like to hand the floor to Ms. Shivan Karemera to communicate with us about how to effectively prepare for interviews. Thank you. Ms. Shivan, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just switch on my video just in a bit. Can you hear me? Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
All right. I can't see my face. I don't even know how I look in this video of yours. It's definitely locked down. We are all working from home. And I'm happy that you invited me to be part of today's presentation, and I'm happy to be here with everyone. Mubs is my home. I was in Mubs during my bachelor's degree, and that is from around 2002 up to 2006 is when I graduated at Mubs. And if Mr. Nkundava Anyanga, I think Mr. Nkundava Anyanga was my lecturer in one of my course units. So after my graduation, I did consulting a little bit for about a year with a company called Q Sourcing Limited. I was like one of the pioneers. And then from there, I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I have been for the last 12 years. I keep coming to mubs every year. I just want to know, do we have some students from other universities, or is it just Asamu is just mubs? I just need to clarify that first.
As Asamu, we have different branches in different universities. We are working on getting them up and running, but the headquarters is based in mubs. And currently we have also other students from different universities.
All right. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy that I am addressing students from different universities. So as PwC, our staffing model is that at the end of every year, which ends around June, we focus on getting new students who are trained to be professional staff. And these students usually join 1st of September of every year. Right now, we are concluding interviews for our September intake. And it happens like that year in, year out. So every year we come to mubs, we go to Makerere and reach out to different universities to have a collection of young, ambitious students to come and join PwC and build their careers in professional services like auditing, like tax consulting, and other advisory services. So it's exciting. I'm used to talking to students, and I'm happy to be here. So I was asked to talk about interviews. I'm going to try and project my screen. I may not answer all your questions probably, but I'll try and share my experience from the interviewing experience that I have. Please confirm you can see my screen. Trevor, can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right, great. So before I get into the details of my presentation, I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank Asamu for calling me. I want to thank specifically Esther Chamugisha, who has kept in touch with me. I met her the last time we were in mubs. I think that was in 2020, early 2020 or 2019, but I met Esther Chamugisha and she has remained in touch ever since. And so I'm grateful that she honored me to invite me to speak to you. Yeah, and everyone, even John, John, I think introduced us, Mulindwa, and something like that. Thank you so much for your introduction. And I think the first Asamu alumni who worked with us at PwC was Emmanuel Wamibu. Not sure if anyone remembers him, but he has been a great staff of PwC. He worked with us for the last, I think, over 3 years, and he has recently resigned, but he was great. So I can attest that Asamu has, at least from the people that joined PwC, they have been great, and I'm grateful for that. So interviews, what do I want to share with you today? You have already introduced me, so that was my first slide. I'm not going to talk much about it. It's already been exhausted. I just want to cover, why do we conduct interviews? Why do organizations conduct interviews? So one, interviews are conducted to mitigate hiring risks. If PwC just went to Makerere University, asked for a dean's list, give me a dean's list of all your students who got first class 4.5 and above, went to mubs, got a dean's list, go to Chambogo, got a dean's list, etc, etc. And then we say, of all these people, let's just take 5 of them. What would be our criteria for hiring? It's not very structured, it's not clear, you're likely to get it wrong, and someone can easily sue you for segregation. You're segregating or you're discriminating university. Your criteria is not all inclusive. And so for such things, to avoid such risks, organizations go through a clear hiring process where they have an open application process. Students submit their their applications, and then they go through a vetting process and they're interviewed until you get the final student. So we go through a process that we can defend even if someone wanted to challenge us. And the other reason we conduct interviews is so that we can get competent people. First-class students are not necessarily the best for environments, working environments, and I say this with authority and from experience. We have hired different students at all times, but sometimes even the best academically are usually sometimes may not be the best at performance. So you have to go through a competence-based process of interviewing for you to pick the best candidates that you need for the job. And so that's why you must go through a clear vetting process to arrive at the people you need. So we have to follow a correct, consistent process, and so does PwC do that. And it also fosters diversity and inclusion. Students from all sorts of walks of life will bring different experiences and challenges they've gone through, and that diversity of skills is very good for any organization to thrive. So interviews have ceased to be sort of very tough environment, scary situations. The person being interviewed usually, yes, gets scared because it's for them, it's a future, it's a livelihood. That's what they're looking for. But sometimes it's not really necessary to be frightened or to be timid, to lose confidence. Because even interviewers, all they want is to just get to know you and assess whether you can fit. And even if you cannot fit in the job you're interviewing for at that moment, there are always other opportunities that will open up. So always look at interviews as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to get a positive experience, and then take that experience into the next interviews. So usually asking the wrong questions may lead to industrial action. So usually when people are conducting interviews, they want to stick to professional questions. And interviewers will follow guidelines to stay within the confines of their mandate to deliver quality candidate experiences. So it's really important that interviews are conducted right. So what are some of the best practices I can share with you that happen around interviews? So the recruiter will usually set the tone and the agenda of the interview and explain the intention and what is the expected process. And that helps you set the pace and also helps you relax because you're not diving deep into the questioning immediately. And the recruiter will ask questions from their competence framework. So it's very important that you do research about the company. And it's so funny that PricewaterhouseCoopers has failed many people. We interview candidates and the only thing they say is PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I think someone introduced me as someone who works at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So we also understand that our company name is very long, but it's important that you get the name right. Even the people interviewing are happy that you get the name right. So our company is PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's not PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's not you, it's many people, and that's why we try to reduce the name to just PwC, because that's what people can easily relate with. So do research about the organization, understand their service offerings. People usually term PwC as an audit firm. PwC is not an audit firm. Auditing is one of the services that PwC provides, but we are a professional services firm. We have legal professional services. We have tax professional services. We have audit professional services. We do forensic audits. We do so many restructuring. We do recruitment professional. We do several professional services. So it would be limiting on an interviewee's part to say that PwC is an auditing firm. So maybe PwC also needs to do a lot more creating awareness around what we do, that we're not just auditors. But it's important. The point I'm trying to say here is, as an interviewee, do research about the organization and present facts that are accurate, not facts that are just haphazard about the organization you're interviewing for. So questions will majorly be technical to ascertain your suitability for the role. And maybe you may ask, but I haven't done any audit. How can I be technically competent to perform an audit service? So technical competence would be just about, so we believe that when you're assessing someone, someone's suitability for the role, they will have performed a certain job somewhere that required some technical competences. It may even be just your end of year project. It may be your coursework. When you're doing your coursework, you're applying your technical knowledge, that the information that you have gathered during your course, you use it to work on a project and produce a certain report. So whatever assignment you're tasked to do, you need certain competence to perform that task. Now, if you're able to say that you applied the knowledge of accounting to work on a project that may be assessed the performance of Ministry of Uganda, of Ministry of Finance in Uganda and delivery of services, and then you're able to articulate how you applied your knowledge into your research, that is a clear indication that you're able to use the knowledge you have about a subject to perform a task, And so if you're able to prove that, then that is enough ability to show that you're technically competent and you're trainable to perform the task that you're going to be interviewed for. But if you're not able to demonstrate that you applied knowledge to do a certain project, then sometimes someone will say, how will you be able to apply other technical skills into the work that you're going to be hired to do? So it's important that you understand how you apply your knowledge today or in your other opportunities that you have. You apply that knowledge to produce results and be effective. So most times recruiters will also avoid personal questions that relate to family responsibility, race, gender, age, orientation, political affiliations, beliefs, or religion. So these are questions around diversity and inclusion, and diversity has become such a key player in the job market. So employers want to be seen as being inclusive, and therefore will not ask questions that will be discriminatory. So you can expect that your answers also should not be discriminatory in the way you present them, especially sexual discrimination around maybe jobs where, like, if you're working with engineers and so you know they were girls and they couldn't do something like this, so you're trying to put certain people in a certain compartment and gauging their ability based on gender. So remaining impartial to possible existing connections and seek to find the competencies and strength in someone. So sometimes at PwC, we have people who know students, actually, maybe their nieces, nephews that have been recommended to apply. We don't stop anyone's relative from applying, but if we know that your relative has applied, you need to let the human capital know, and then that person will not sit on your panel or interview you, so that we remove the point of subjectivity. So it's important for the interviewee also to make sure that they're not conflicted when they're going to meet a panel. Usually you will not know, but the panel will know, and so it's important that you have this information at the back of your mind. So it's important that you also remain aware of the unconscious bias and challenge themselves. So interviewers may have natural biases, but usually they're trained to be aware of these biases. And so what they do, they will try to assess candidates using the competence framework, so that they gather evidence to support the decision that they will arrive at. And interviewers need to be seen as fair. And even you who is interviewing, you need to know that the interviewers will be fair. And so whatever comes out of your interview, do not look at it as discriminatory or that they were being unfair, but take the positive experience and go apply it elsewhere, because not everyone who is interviewed usually gets the job. It's just usually a few. The ratio is usually 1 to 3. If you want 5 candidates, you will interview 15 candidates, and definitely 10 will lose a job and 5 will be hired. So of the 10 that don't get hired, be positive about it and come and take it away as an experience. So that is usually the policy around interviews. So what's here? How best can you approach an interview? I'm hoping that's what it is. Yeah, how best can you answer interview questions? Now, I think this is what is very important for you, and probably the key part or the key reason why you invited me to this session this morning. A few weeks ago, I attended a session where I was invited by your career guidance director, Maureen, to speak to students at mubs, and I spoke about this briefly, and I want to speak about it again, and feel free to ask me questions. But this is an approach that helps both the interviewer and the interviewee to actually approach their answering perfectly well, yeah? So how does it work? So most times, you need to know, as interviewees I've already mentioned, you need to know that this is interviews are a process of evidence gathering. Interviewers are gathering evidence about you to show that, or to prove to anyone, beat the bosses, beat the auditor, beat the professional regulators like ISPA or SCCFA come to review us, to show them that we actually went through a process of interviewing these candidates and we hire very competent students. Now, how does that process work? We gather evidence from what you're telling us. From me as an interviewer, you as an interviewee, you tell us what you have done in the past that we use to assess to make a decision. So the best way to answer any question that is put to you, you don't even need to know that question. One of the things that I was asked to do was, what are some of the most commonly asked questions? You don't even need to know what is commonly asked, because you may know what is commonly asked, but they ask you something totally different and you're thrown off balance. What you need to know is, how do I approach any question that is asked of me? What you need to know in your head before answering is to understand that this person wants to know, where in my past have I performed an assignment? When I was given that assignment, what was the situation? The situation is a problem. What problem was I trying to solve? Was it my uncle's shop where I was selling dry food like seeds? What was the problem? Maybe you're manning a certain kiosk in the village somewhere and you're the only supplier, and your father has to go back maybe to look after animals in the field, you're at the shop, and that's your problem. You need to be able to improve sales, you need to be able to manage the accounts, you need to be able to serve customers that they come back. So you have a project, a small, in your head, you may think it's a mini project, but it's important if you're able to articulate your facts around that situation. Is it that your mother has is probably a it's probably a cashier in a circle? Is it maybe a situation where you're at church, you're a treasurer? What is it that you're doing? The small projects that you're doing on a day-to-day, for example, in lockdown, what are you doing to keep yourself afloat? So you describe a situation, you describe a problem, and then you talk about the tasks that were undertaken or that were desired to be taken. If you're able to describe, understand your JD. For example, I'm supposed to maybe work on a template for my mother to track her costs, or maybe work on a policy document for my father to run his maybe his supply business. Maybe I should be able to work out some sort of accounts for to track the costs and expenditure or the procurement process. So whatever task that you're given, or what if it's an end of year project, the proposal, or what if it's an internship at Umeme, an internship at NSSF, how did that go? So you look at the tasks that were given to you to undertake. And then, but what did you actually do when you were given those as tasks? Did you actually meet the timelines? Was there pressure? How did you handle the pressure? Was it accurate? Was it actually adopted? Did your mom say, thank you, this has helped me so much? Did you get to evaluate the result? When you are doing the project, how many marks did you score in that project that you submitted? And what was the result? So, and when you got the result, what is the feedback? Just help me. Can everyone hear me? Can someone tell me you can hear me? You've been following. Someone has told me the network is unstable. I'm sorry. Are you losing me?
No, we can hear you.
No,
All right. Okay. So let me go on. Okay. So I hope you didn't lose me at any point.
No,
we didn't.
All right. Okay. So let me go on. And so that is what I wanted you to take away from this. It's not about the questions that you asked, but it's about how you answer those questions and what approach or thought process you go through in your head as you're thinking about the answer. So think about the roles you played on a team. Think about the result that was expected of you. Think about the feedback that was given. Think about what problem it is that you solved and how it was sustainable, whether it continued to operate or whether you created sustainable value. And once you're able to think through your life, think through the different challenges or the different problems you've solved or the different scenarios that have been thrown at you and how you have come out of them and what you have achieved, then you're able to articulate that I can actually get into this situation. I can do the work. I can be able to articulate my tasks. I can do them, and I can be able to document my findings, and you can be able to assess the results. Yeah. So that is what you need to take away from here. So remember, when you any question, any answer you provide, the interviewer will maybe probe further. If you haven't answered very well, don't worry. If the interviewer needs to get extra information or to understand you further, they will probe. They will ask the question in a different way, and they'll give you an opportunity to improve your answer. So they will need to gather more facts and not opinions. I'm talking about opinions. I think in your answering, avoid things like, if that situation was me, for me, I would prioritize. I'm very good at prioritizing. I would prioritize. I would maybe distribute my tasks between, if we are 4 people, I see who does what, then I would communicate and make sure I keep track of my teams. Then I would make sure that I submit a report on time. So those answers are not helpful. They don't help you excel in an interview because they're not talking about experiences you've gone through. They're only talking about what you would do. And anyone can quickly think of what would I do in a situation like that. You can quickly work it out in your head. But when you're in the situation, are you actually able to do that? So what interviewers need to know is, have you gone through a situation like this? And how did you handle it? How did you undertake it? And what was the result? So you need to speak in the past of what you achieved and how did you do it, and be specific. So provide facts and not opinions, and know that interviewers will be taking notes, and those notes will be used to assess whether you are suitable for the role or not. So I wanted to give you some tips. I spent some time on that slide because I thought it was important, and it's the biggest part of my presentation today. So on this particular slide, I just want to give you tips on how to prepare for virtual interviews. Now, you asked me to prepare questions. What typical questions can be asked now that we are in lockdown, that relate to lockdown? I also didn't think that was relevant for me because the questions do not change. The process of hiring doesn't change. It's the same competence framework. It's the same technical skills that people want, except that now you need to have a notch higher in terms of your digital competences. But what is important is to know how to approach your answering. And that is what you need to do now, to think about yourselves, to reflect on your life, to reflect on the job opportunities you've had, on the task opportunities you've had, and see how you executed them and how you did well. So you do a self-evaluation and what you achieved in whatever you did. Now, how can you prepare for virtual interviews effectively? You need to mentally prepare yourself. I wanted to minimize this. I think my slide is a bit too big, and I may not be able to read some of my things. But anyway, I'll just talk through them. So mentally prepare. The first few, you need to have a few minutes to prepare yourself before any interview. Try to log in early. Those are the usual things. Log into the call early. Prepare your environment. Make the conversation seamless. I don't want to take a lot of your time. How much time do I have left? Please confirm how much time I have left. It's now coming to midday, and we have 30 more minutes. There's another. I'm aware there's another speaker, so I should be concluding. So prepare your environment and make sure that it's conducive for you, free of distractions, because this is your time. So build relationships in an interview. So as an interviewee, you're the one who needs this job. You have to switch on your camera. People need to see your face. People need to know who they are talking to, because they need to know that when you report for work, you're actually the same person they interviewed. You need to see your face in real life. The interviewers may not switch on their cameras because it interferes with the network. It also interferes with the concentration, because now you have to look at faces. It's important that the candidate knows that they need to switch to keep their. Trevor, you have something to say? I see your hand up.
Yes, Ms. Shivan. I just wanted to confirm about your time left. You have 10 minutes to go, so it's okay. You can wind up or take your time.
All right, I'm going to use my 10 minutes effectively. Okay. So yeah, so in terms of building relationships, keep your camera on and let people be able to see your face. And keep it pleasant, not show any stress or anxiety. Just keep focused on the camera and speak confidently all through your interview. Then pause to think. There's no need for you to rush to answer, because when they ask you, that is your moment to actually answer and be able to convince the interviewer that you're going to excel at the job that you have to do. So take your time, be composed, be confident, not a lot of time, but be confident about what you're going to say. So interviewers understand that speaking during virtual conversations can be difficult. So they will most likely allow you a few moments to think and respond to the question. If you don't understand the question, feel free to ask that they repeat the question if you didn't understand. So also remember, it has to be balanced. If you take a lot of time, it may also work against you, because they'll think that you don't think on your feet. You need to be able to jump into the situation and be able to answer correctly and confidently and quickly. But at the same time, you have to have a balance. You don't have to be too quick. Take your time and think through your answer. It's also good to be analytical, to demonstrate analytical skills. So be specific in your answering. Your responses are often perceived as more abstract when delivered from afar. That is because a disadvantage of virtual interviews. So ensure that you're specific to avoid ambiguity. Words can be taken more literally when delivered virtually. So consider the meaning behind what you have said to avoid any misunderstanding. Make sure that whatever you're saying is actually what you intend to say. And don't expect that an interviewer will read between the lines to understand what you're trying to say. Be very specific. And be mindful of body language. Even if it's virtual, someone is still looking at you and seeing how you're moving. So maintain a very good tone of delivery, maintain eye contact, looking directly in the camera, and then make sure that you deliver your points confidently and comfortably. Asking relevant questions at the end of the interview before logging off. I'm avoiding giving you questions, because if I tell you a question, it doesn't answer, you say, oh, she just gave us Shiwani. You just have to be able to know that what's going on, which organization you're interviewing for, what do you genuinely want to know about the organization. For example, if you don't understand what audit does, you can ask which clients so far are important in PW, are key to PwC. If I come as an engineer, what clients am I likely to be booked on? How do you track this? And just have knowledge about the organization. And then the things you don't understand as you do your research, ask those questions. Ask intelligent questions that are relevant to the organization. ask about the experience you think you will be able to gain when you join PwC. Ask about their value proposition, their benefits, and things like that. Questions, of course, you're discouraged to ask questions about money, but it will be answered if that's what you really want to ask. It won't be answered directly. No one will ever tell you how much, but it's important to show that you're interested in the job, you have done research about the job, and ask relevant questions about the job that you are interviewing for. I think this may be my last before I hand over back to Kiambi. Is it? Sorry. What do you need to avoid in interviews? Going unprepared. That's why I keep telling you, prepare for interviews. So take do not take the interview for granted, like failing to dress properly. If you come dressed properly, or if it's a physical interview and you have been working the whole day and you probably had showered last night or didn't use proper hygiene, didn't follow proper hygiene, like you didn't wear a deodorant. We have seen those and many more. I'm saying this because it's common. Someone comes in a room and the interviewers just want to disappear or want to open windows. Please take interviews seriously. Do everything you need to do to make sure you look presentable, because when you start at a lower level, then you have to work much harder to supersede that impression that you have created for yourself. So try and start higher and let the interviewers struggle to find things to find wrong about you, but let them keep their impression high about you. So come ready to impress, don't take interviews for granted. We struggle with engineers and computing students. Most of the time, we have seen that engineers and computing students are very casual. I'm sorry, I'm putting in a bracket. I hope I'm not going to be accused of anything, but we know that their work environment is really about getting the work done. And maybe you do a lot of field work, you carry rucksacks on your back, but it's important to dress professionally for an interview, especially if you're interviewing for a professional services job. Do not seem uninterested or nonchalant, very relaxed. Show seriousness in the interview. Give complete answers. You don't have to be probed. Sometimes if you give a perfect answer, no one will probe further, but it's okay to be probed. It's very fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you give complete answers, people will be wowed. They may even ask you just a few bits here and there. Do not show frustration in an interview, or and also do not give too much confidential information, like some sort of lugambo about someone. These people were not, I worked in a team, but these guys were very careless. They didn't really care. Trying to, bring yourself up by putting your team down. Find a balance in terms of the way you bring out your points. And also do not talk too much. There are people who are known for talking non-stop, who like talking. I hope I am not considered one of those. In my training today, I may have talked too much and gotten carried away. But try and minimize your answers, be precise and be brief in your answering. Do not allow to be stopped, because sometimes the interviewers can wait for you to end. They even get off focus and they start even thinking about what did I do at home while you're speaking. They're thinking about things at home, or they're thinking about work that they never completed. And by the time they come back, they've lost interest in the interview and they will not recommend you. So make sure you limit your answers into you compact your answer into a very brief and precise response that is very impactful. Yeah, so when you're unsuccessful, do not accuse people of biases. Yeah, so I guess people will want to know whether you're able to work extra hours in a challenging environment, how you balance your work and the things you like to do outside of work and things like that, because you want a balanced person. So I really think and hope that this has answered a few of the questions you had for me. I'd like to open up the floor for discussions. I think I've used up my time effectively, and I'd like now to hand back to you guys. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shivan Karimera. Right now, let's head into our question and answer session. So, Ms. Shivan, I'd like to direct to you 3 main questions. The rest shall be answered at the end when we are through with our second speaker's presentation. The first question being, people want to know, how exactly can you create a good rapport between you and the panelists or the interviewers? So Ms. Shivan, could you answer? There's that question. The second question is, people have this question. Yes, I know Ms. Shivan talked about us not preparing for commonly asked questions, but it seems this is a very popular question in the group chat. How do you answer common questions like, talk about yourself, and do you have any questions for us? Because those are the questions which people commonly find during their interviews. And the last question is, during the interview, they usually ask about salary expectation. So do I have to say what I expect to receive as a salary, or should I answer the question basing on my experience, like where I've worked previously or from what I know, thanks to my research? So Ms. Shivan, could you help answer those questions? Thank you.
Right. Thank you for those questions. I like questions because at least it makes me realize that you have been paying attention and following and engaged. So thank you. So how do you create a good rapport? A good rapport, I'm sure you guys are the ones who are doing communication skills. If you can maintain good eye contact, and if you can remain with a positive face, a smiley face, it will really make it easy for the conversations to continue flowing, yeah? So what I can tell you about rapport is be interested, show interest in the interview, show that you're happy about being there for the interview, and not be overly relaxed, like sitting back and seeming like you're not interested or being too casual. So let the conversation flow. Usually conversations flow. So let the conversation flow, answer properly and positively. In terms of frequently asked questions, you can re-ask certain questions if I have not answered correctly. In terms of commonly asked questions, talk about yourself. Really, you know about yourself better than anyone else. So if I ask you to talk about yourself, think about, one, you have to give your name, your academic qualifications, and what you've been exposed to. So briefly, people want to know your education background and a bit of the skills that you have gained, not in detail, because those things will come up in your interviews, whatever they want to ask, but do not go on and on about a lot of things. Just talk about after university or during university, I was exposed to probably this opportunity. So it's already in your CV. You already have CVs, already worked out a little profile for yourself. So think about that profile and echo it in the interview. If you ask me to talk about myself, I'll tell you how I am. I've been in PwC for the last 12 years. I've been in human resource management. I manage people. I work on things around interviewing. I work on recruitment and project and performance management projects. I work on benefits and things like that. So I'll give you a little bit of background relating on the job I am interviewing for. So you don't have to go a lot in detail about yourself. Just be brief and things that are, if they want anything more, they will ask you. No one is going to score how if the things that are going to score will not include tell me about yourself. They will not score that. So don't really stress. It's not one of those questions I would stress about. Now, commonly asked questions, people want to establish your skills around leadership. PwC cares a lot about whole leadership. Whole leadership is about competence around leading yourself, being in charge and of the task assigned to you, leading others, being able to manage yourself and the work that feeds into others and how you feed into that, and then being able to add value to overall projects and overall organization, the things that you do. So if you're able to bring out ability to manage yourself, lead yourself. That is very important for you to prepare for. Salary expectations is an area I wouldn't really stress about any day. Salary expectations, you will be given a form to fill. So put in the money that you think would a university graduate would be earning. Yeah, let's put in that amount. Usually firms, organizations already have benchmarks. They already have pay scales. So even if you ask for 20 million, they will offer you what they're paying, and then it's up to you to reject that contract. So put in a reasonable amount that based on your research around fresh graduates, what do they really earn? I think that's all I recorded. Please ask me any question I haven't answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shivan, for sharing those answers with us. You have properly answered our questions, and if there's one more question, it would be on, I got this recently from the chat, but someone is asking, how would you answer the question of why did you leave your last job in the event you were asked?
So usually that question, you see, the reason I'm not trying to focus on particular questions is because I want you to be authentic. You need to be yourselves. You need to think about the reasons you're actually leaving the job. It's just as simple as that. There's no formula to answering questions except what is factual. And when you're trying to fetch things here and there, that's when they realize that this person doesn't know what they're talking about. So be factual, be authentic in your answering. Why did you pick up your application to submit an application to PwC? Is it because you saw an exciting opportunity that you've dreamt about over the years? Is it because where you are right now, you probably are not getting the training skills, or you just, is it because you have seen an opportunity that really suits your capabilities, it is in line with your professional expectations? Is it because you know the reputation of the firm and definitely want to get into that organization for that reason? What is your reason for picking up an application and submitting it? It's just answering those questions needs to be as authentic as possible. So that's how I can guide you. Think about your own reasons and then answer them like that. Do not use an answer that has been given to you by someone else. It will not be you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Shivan, for addressing our questions. I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It was very authentic and it helped us understand what we're supposed to do at interviews or how we should effectively prepare for them. So I'd just like to re-echo 3 of your major key points during your presentation. For one, I got that we need to be authentic during our interviews. Like, people tend to focus on how exactly should I pass this interview? What do I need to do? Do I need to look for resources to pass this interview? But it seems the trick is just being yourself and answering the questions as they've been posed to you. And secondly, I saw the STAR model, and I believe that's a good model for us to use while answering these questions during an interview. One of them, the STAR model includes the situation, like you've been given a situation and you're expected to describe the situation you're in. What tasks have you decided to take on so as to fix the problem, which is within the situation? Then what action have you taken? And finally, what results have you come up with after being given such a situation? So I believe that that model can actually help all of us create our own authentic answers on how to go about these interviews. So I'd like to remind people that our chat is open to questions, and we have a team there ready to collect all your questions. Finally, on Ms. Shivan's presentation, it focused more on virtual events, because right now, as the pandemic is showing us, most interviews will be held online. So for now, the best thing you could do is preparing mentally, prepare your environment, your background, try to ensure that you have something presentable, because people have this tendency of forgetting that even their own environment behind them can determine whether they get the job or not. So generally, you would want to focus on preparing for interview well. You can go on YouTube, do your own research. You should build relationships like with your interviewers, try to talk, try to get to know them. Then take time to pause and think about the answers. Our interviewers won't take it into a bad account if you decided to take some time to think about the answers that you're going to give. And finally, you also give us some things to avoid during our interviews, which as a highlight, I would see talking too much during your interview, seeming uninterested in your interview, poorly preparing for your interview, taking your interview for granted. So all these are major things that can affect how you look during your interview. So for those who want to effectively prepare, just remember, be yourself. And so next on the agenda, I'd like to have the second speaker. But before we invite her, I'd like to recognize our alumni who have managed to join the meeting and take their valuable time to engage with us, the students. In our alumni, those include Winston Biriomumaisho. I'm sorry if I butchered the name, but it's Winston, Mr. Winston Biriomumaisho, Mr. Watmon Ronaldo, and Mr. Alex Chisache. So thank you very much for attending our program. And for now, we're moving on to the aptitude tests. And our guest speaker is Miss Joanne Nesta Adoch. She's going to be taking us through how to effectively prepare for our aptitude tests. Miss Joanne, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Joanne Nesta Adoch, as I've been introduced. I work with RSM Eastern Africa as the Human Resource Administrator, and I was invited to present to you on aptitudes. There are a number of questions that were asked, so I will answer them one at a go. I may not really state the questions, but my presentation will encompass everything under the questions that were posed. So I'll begin with the definition of an aptitude, because we are looking at aptitude tests, and we need to know what an aptitude is so that we know what exactly is being tested. In a layman's term, an aptitude refers to an individual's inherent competence to undertake specific tasks. It is his or her natural ability to learn and reason, and it includes components such as the cognitive prowess, that is your brain power, your mental ability, which is also your brain power, innate intelligence, and natural flair. Those are some of the issues that may be tested during the abilities that may be tested when you're handed an aptitude test. So an aptitude test, in definition, is a test designed to determine a person's ability in a particular skill or field of knowledge. It can have different types of testing formats depending on the required skills for the job role. These tests are designed with questions to gauge how candidates react to a specific situation besides their ability to perform tasks and solve problems. So this definition is, I think, as easy as it can be, because I try to use normal words, not the HR words like someone would call them. The aptitude test that is presented to an engineer is definitely not the same aptitude test that is going to be presented to an accountant. At the end of the day, we are testing two different things. A statistician cannot do the same aptitude test with a pilot. A nurse cannot do the same aptitude test with a mechanic. So the aptitude test it serves the same purpose, but the test will be different for each kind of ability that we are looking out for. So you need to understand the relevance of aptitude tests, the importance, and why we administer aptitude tests. For starters, An aptitude test is usually administered where we have large numbers of applicants. Let's say we are recruiting for an audit intern or just an intern, could be for outsourcing, for tax, for finance, for admin. So we have a very large number of applicants, let's say 60, and we just need 2 or 3 people for the job. All those 60, we scan and go through their documents, and of the 60, let's say 45 would qualify for the job, depending on the requirements that have been advertised. Now we need to choose from those 60, from those 45, which people we want to interview orally. That is when we administer aptitude tests. So what is the importance of these aptitude tests? One, they help maintain a focused approach to zeroing in on suitable candidates for particular jobs. Remember, in the definition, I told you the aptitude test helps us to gauge certain mental abilities. So one of the importances of having an aptitude test is to help maintain a focused approach on zeroing in on suitable candidates for particular job roles. 2, they support equal opportunities for all and help maintain a fair recruitment process. Because aptitude tests are marked, so you score according to how you respond. There is no bias in there because it's on paper, you're not seeing this person's face. They also help identify the need for training in a particular domain. Because aptitude tests usually are composed of 2 sections, we have the structured section and the multiple choice section. So the structured section is where we actually look and see if this person did well in the multiple choice section. And the structured section is also, let's say, fairly done. You see the answer is there, what you're looking for is there, but maybe it's not well structured. It helps you, the recruiter, to identify the need, the training need in a particular domain when it comes to hiring, in case this person actually makes it through the following phase of the interview. Aptitude tests also help, they can expedite the recruitment process as the results are automatically generated via computers. Of course, it makes it easier because you have an Excel spreadsheet and put everything together and just click average. Then you get what you're looking for. It saves a lot of time. They are also cost-effective and easy to administer. Like I mentioned, you spend less time going through the sorting process of the 45, how many can go into the orals, let's say, or the technical interview or the group tests, depending on what comes after that. It saves a lot of time and they're really easy to administer because I'm going to have 60 people sit down and do one test in a period of 2 hours. And then I'll have the marking done. I can have a conveyor belt and it saves a lot of time. We don't need hours and days and very many people to do it. Then the insights from the aptitude tests offer a well-rounded understanding of a candidate's skills. This still goes back to this point here to identify the need for training in a particular domain, because you know what the candidate is good at and where you need to improve. They also provide immediate insights into a candidate's abilities while enabling the recruiters to look beyond their resume and work experiences. Now, when you apply, the first impression an employer has of an applicant comes from your resume, how you put it and what you put in there, your qualifications and experiences. So when you do the aptitude test, even if, let's say, the ranking of CVs that had put you on number 44, 45 out of the 45, then you do an aptitude test and you actually go up the bar. It helps to take away the bias that comes with the resume, the CV. They're also directly related to the quality of hire. Scores, numbers translate into performance, even with the economy. The higher the numbers, the better the economy is, unless it is under corruption and inflation, of course. They are a handy tool to screen a variety of candidates for bulk hiring. like I mentioned. Let's say we are working with the Public Service Commission and they are hiring for a number of job vacancies. Let's say it is the Auditor General's office. They're looking for an HR person, an administrative assistant, assistant auditors, trainees. Let's say they're looking for like 7 different kinds of people to employ in different departments. And they need like 6 people for one department or 10 for another department. You find yourself saving a lot of time when you administer one aptitude test. Because these aptitude tests are usually open-ended, there are some that are open-ended and there are some that are actually closed. We may have a general aptitude test that anyone could do, a nurse, a doctor, a pilot, a mechanic, a teacher, an admin, anyone can do that test. So those are the kinds of aptitude tests that are handed out. So let's say you have 1,000 applicants overall for everything. It helps to reduce the bulk that you would have gone through interviewing each and every one of these candidates. Some people look at it as hard work, like we are so many, why are we doing aptitude tests? Well, the better you're doing this aptitude test, the better your chances of beating the numbers and going into the next phase that may actually be more fair to you because you're now going beyond what you have offhand. They also help to understand the strengths and weaknesses of existing and prospective employees. Aptitude tests may not only be given to prospective employees, known as applicants. They are also given to employees that may be seeking transfers, may be seeking promotions, because it has to be as fair as possible. Let's say there are 6 people who are seeking a promotion to a given level, to the same work level, but they are from, let's say we are having, if I'm to use our setting at RSM, if we are having 6 associates and they want to move to the audit senior level, we can administer an aptitude test to see which one of them is most suitable to move to that position before we have the oral interviews or any other interviews that apply to that kind of movement, to the next level. That is it about the relevance of the aptitude test. So I was also asked, what are the types of aptitude tests? There are majorly 2 types of aptitude tests. One, the aptitude test that measures fluid intelligence, and the next would be the aptitude test measuring crystallized intelligence. Now, aptitude tests that measure fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence is defined as, I'm trying to get a word that is very understandable and I don't need to use complex words. Let's say the day-to-day intelligence that you're using. How do I figure this out? How do I get this done? Something that may not need a job description or technical competence to get around. So examples of aptitude tests that measure fluid intelligence may include puzzles. You may come for an aptitude test and you're having group aptitude tests. So we give like 2 people a puzzle to solve within, let's say, 10 minutes. And that helps us to see how you can work together to solve the puzzle. And that is an aptitude test. That is what I was talking about. Some aptitude tests measure your natural flair, how you work with people. Another example would be the abstract reasoning analysis. You are given a photo or a picture of something that looks like a cloud. Then the cloud looks like a puppy. The puppy sometimes looks like it's about to eat a rabbit. What sense do you make out of it? Those are the abstract reasoning analysis. Then spatial reasoning assessments. We have visual reasoning tests, which also may look like abstract reasoning analysis. We have logical reasoning tests as well. You have a situation at hand and you are given a task to solve it. Like those questions that they used to ask in school during campaigns. Imagine there's this situation, what would you do about it? Those are the logical reasoning tests. So you might have a test, an aptitude test that gives you a life situation and you have to solve it. We have problem solving skills, and then reading comprehension analysis. That is why you see some aptitude tests. Let's say you are applying to become an auditor. You're applying to become a doctor, a lawyer. But in this case, we are under accounting and stuff. So I'll use auditing and accounting or a finance person. And the test includes write about how you feel about the speech given by the president last night. It does not add anything to you as an auditor, as you may think, but it helps the employer, your prospective employer, understand what your reading and comprehension skills are. In case you're handed, let's say, a problem from a client and it is written verbally all through, so you have to get your figures and everything from there. So it helps your prospective employer to understand that from there as well. So as I mentioned earlier on, the second type of aptitude test would be measuring crystallized intelligence. Now, crystallized intelligence is what we have. Let's say the technical knowledge that you need to have for the job. Verbal ability tests are part of crystallized intelligence tests. I am the human resource administrator at RSM. I do a lot of speaking, not only to my staff, but I also speak to clients, I speak to service providers, and being a verbal person and my verbal ability definitely was tested during the hiring system. And there are people who are, in case you're also you're applying for a position, let's say at senior level, you're going to meet clients. You are going to be the face during an assignment. You have to go through these tests, not because they're trying to make life hard for you, but because we actually need to know how good you are or whether we need to test you in that kind of competence. It also goes along with language proficiency assessment. Language proficiency assessments here really come in when we are assessing technical language. Because there are jobs where you cannot come and say, like you're an economist, you cannot come and say, the price of things is really high. It would be easier it would make more sense if an economist came and said the inflation rate is going high. So that is the language proficiency we are looking for, to see how technical you are at your game. We also have numerical reasoning tests. That is self-explanatory. You need to know your numbers as a finance person. Data interpretation assessment, also self-explanatory. Then decision-making and judgment tests. These are basically, we need them everywhere, not just at the senior level. Even at the entry level, you need to be able to make decisions on what to communicate, how to communicate, and who to communicate with. And the time that you take in between the decision-making, that decision-making can also be judged there. Because as service providers, accountants and RSM in particular, we are service providers. We give you our time and you pay for our time. So time is really of value to us, and we measure decision-making and aptitude. At some point, it may not be at the entry level, but somewhere you will find it. So those are the types of aptitude tests that we have at the moment. Now, how best can you prepare for aptitude tests? There is no written formula for how to prepare for aptitude tests. There is nothing written down somewhere of how to prepare for aptitude tests. But we can give as much advice as possible from experience, and I don't want you to quote me directly, but this is what I would give you in case you asked me, how do you prepare for aptitude tests? One, practice using realistic online tests. If you're applying for an account assistant job, you have looked at the job requirement needs, let's say the job description attached to the advert. Look at it and see what they are looking for. If you can go online and find a test that tests, an aptitude test that tests you on those competences, even better for you, gives you higher chances of acing that test. Once you have looked at that test, focus on your weakest areas. Let's say I'm not good at numbers, personally. If I'm going to do an aptitude test for, let's say, a finance administrator, there are certain things I will be able to do, definitely. There are others I will not be able to do. So I have to go and practice on the areas I am sure I cannot ace. Those are my weak areas. So it goes upon you as an applicant, as a candidate, to be honest with yourself and say, this is not my strong area, so let me work on it before you even meet the panel. Then you have to understand the difference between tests as you're doing them. You're going to be provided, you're going to be given an aptitude test that has the multiple choice area and the structured area. So you need to know, where should I put my best effort? The multiple choice area usually has more marks because it takes less time. But it will take more time because you need to get all those marks. So you have to understand the difference and know where to put your strengths. Find specific practice tests, of course, like I said, find realistic online tests. When you find the online test, find specific ones that apply to the area you think you're going to be tested on. Then, I did not complete the sentence, but check what you can take with you into the test. Most aptitude tests have an area of numbers. You may need a calculator. So take time to find out if you're allowed to carry a calculator, and if yes, what kind of calculator. Can a scientific calculator be taken, or they just want these normal calculators? It will help you ace your aptitude test. Also, manage your time carefully during the exam. Like I mentioned, there are more marks in the multiple test area, multiple answer area. There are more marks there. But it is not guaranteed that you're going to get all those marks. The best thing you would do is do what you can really quickly. Get done with it. What you can't do fast, keep. Move to the structured section. Read the instructions very carefully, by the way, while you go to the structured questions. Read the instructions very carefully and know what you need to do. Once you are conversant and you're sure that is what you're supposed to do, choose the easiest question. The marks are usually the same. There is no, the marks will not be higher for a harder question. So the easiest way to prepare for and pass is choose the easiest question. While you're at the easiest question, give answers that are enough. If the test is going to take, let's say, 20 marks, give a maximum of 15 points. They're not going to mark your excess points and give you more marks. That will only be wasting your time. Once you're done with the structured area, the reason why I'm saying don't give so many answers is you have to go back to the questions you missed at the end. Go back to the structured section, to the multiple answer section, and respond to the answers that you left unanswered. Make sure you're done with them so that you don't reduce your chances of excelling at the test. If you get stuck, move on, like I mentioned. Do not waste time trying to think a multiple test. First, move on. Then read all the questions and instructions carefully, like I mentioned. Then you go back to what you missed at the end. Now, when you have handed in the test and it's now out of your hands, Usually you're given a turnaround time, like we shall get back to you within a week or so. Within a week, if you don't get a response, be courteous, take the courtesy to inquire why you think you did not make it. If you made it, even better, you have the chance to use that experience better, whether you made it or not. Aptitude tests are just like any other interviews. Pick the experience, whether you make it or not, pick the lesson and use it in your next adventure, I would say. Unless there's something I have not answered, which I believe I have answered every question that I needed to address in my presentation, I will open the floor for questions in case there are any. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joan Nesta.
You're welcome.
For the question, thank you very much for your presentation. It has enlightened us a lot about these aptitude tests.
You're welcome.
So what people understand from aptitude tests is that there will be more of what can your brain do on its own. So I call to the audience to understand that this is not really a books related question. So like when you hear Miss Joan talk about these types of aptitude tests, which include those that are measuring your fluid intelligence and your crystallized intelligence, you should understand that these questions will be posed as common sense questions, not necessarily books. Like they'll give you, yes, there'll be math problems, but they won't be these math problems of equations and what you have to solve at school. So just understand that these questions are going to come more common sense questions and not really books related questions. So thank you very much. I'd just like to highlight 3 of her major points. So these tests are relevant mostly when there is a bulk of applicants. So you should understand that if you're applying for a job whereby you'll be 1,000 plus, maybe 2,000 plus applicants, you should also expect an aptitude test, not necessarily a one-to-one interview. Then for the kinds, she's made it clear that there are those aptitude tests which measure your fluid intelligence and those that measure your crystallized intelligence. And you need to get the difference and try to find some practice online. Then how to prepare, she's given us a general overview of what you need to do in terms of getting realistic online practice questions. You can find those on your own. Focus on your weaker areas. Check what you can take. Check for what you can take in for the test, which is like a calculator. So just make sure you're prepared. And finally, if you're stuck, move on. I think also time management is a very important aspect because it seems these tests will not be the easiest tests in terms of your intelligence. Like don't expect very simple questions, but expect questions which can task you mentally. So Ms. Adoch, I'd like to give you the questions that we have been addressed with from our chat. And the first question to ask would be, in the event that someone has failed an aptitude test, should we ask for feedback? And if so, how should we ask for the feedback? Then how should we bounce back from that failed aptitude test? The second question is, what
Trevor,
exactly does, yes, please.
do you mind if I answer one question at a time as you pose the next?
It's very okay, Ms.
Yes?
Adoch.
All right, thank you. So you asked in case someone did not make it, like you feel you didn't pass, you did not do well. Please pose the question again.
Okay,
Just so I get the right words.
The question is, in the event you did not pass the aptitude test, should you ask for feedback from your recruiter? And if so, how? Then, secondly, how would you bounce back after having failed that aptitude test? What should you do?
Okay.
Then.
One, it may be hard for the recruiter to get back to all candidates that did an aptitude test. This is being as honest as possible. You might have 90 people that did the test and only, let's say, 20 people went through. Communicating to these 20 people is already time, and there are other things on your list. So you may not find time to communicate to all the remaining 70. But take it upon yourself as an applicant. I have not gotten feedback. Write to the email that usually sent you an invite, or you can call back on the number that called you for the invite. You get it? We usually take courtesy to respond as recruiters because you know you've been there and this person really needs the help. That's why they're asking. One, we shall let you know that you did not make it for such and such a reason. We shall definitely not give you the max because we don't want you to lose value. I mean, to lose morale for aptitude tests. They may be high, but we shall tell you, you could have done better in such and such an area. So knowing that you could have done better in a given area will help you practice better in that area for your next test. And of course, we shall tell you, maybe next time you could do this also this side, so that you get better at it and you generally improve altogether. Because if you just failed at one side and then you have another side that you didn't really do well, if you did better at both ends, it will really increase your chances altogether. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Adoch. For the second question, someone asked that what exactly does a recruiter look for when a logical reasoning test is asked? So I think they're trying to refer to a scenario-based question. For example, if your manager decides to put you in a difficult situation, like they try to assume a difficult situation, how exactly should you approach such a question? It's a logical reasoning test. So how would you approach such a question?
Okay, like the name of the test goes, it's a logical reasoning test. One, we want to see how fast you are at decision making, because some logical reasoning tests are also decision making tests, assessments you get. But one, we want to see how you deal with day-to-day situations, which is logic. Secondly, we are looking at what if it is not structured? Let's say you're running late. You're in an Uber and your Uber failed. Are we going to let our client down? We are looking for how best you are at making the best of a situation. Can we depend on you in case there's a situation that we cannot handle in your presence? Maybe you're stuck in the field and something is not going right. They're just looking for how you are going to use your logical strength to the benefit of the employer and how is it going to help them become a better person as well. Let's say we are having a test, like a question in the line of, I'll use the common day-to-day questions of you are the mess prefect. Let's say the dining hall prefect. I'll say mess prefect because everyone, I guess, here understands what mess is. You're the mess prefect, and like 2 minutes before lunchtime, you see a lizard falling in the sauce. What would you do? Those are logical reasoning questions. We are looking at, are you going to sacrifice the whole school because lizards are poisonous? Are you going to sacrifice the whole school because it's lunchtime? Or we had better deliver late, but safely. We are looking for that reasoning. You as a person, how sensible are you? Like, I don't want to be rude, but how sensible are you at solving questions? That is what we are looking for.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Adoch. I hope our questions have properly been answered. So in the best interest of time, I'd like to thank Ms. Adoch for presenting and sharing with us this beautiful information she had for us. Thank you very much, Ms. Adoch.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to recognize the alumni and staff members that have managed to join. Thank you for sharing your valuable time with us. We have had our question and answer session, and now I'd like to have closing remarks from our speakers. So Ms. Shivan Karimera or Ms. Joanna Doch Nesta, I'd like to ask for a brief one-word piece of advice that you'd like to give to our attendees. Thank you. We could start with Ms. Adoch since she's from speaking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. What piece of advice would I give? One, an interview is a day-to-day life challenge. If you treat it that way, it will be easier for you to get through it. And the job world is not as hard as life is. So don't make it harder than life. If you fail at this interview, prepare for the next. It's not like life that has come to an end. And while at the job hunt, make as many connections as you can. It will help you someday. You may not have made it at RSM for one reason or the other, but I could recommend you for another opportunity somewhere, depending on how I found you during the interview. So just make the best of them. As Shivan said, prepare for them because it's a day-to-day life experience. Make the best of it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. John. Ms. Shivan, could you share any word of advice with our attendees?
I'm not very good at last words, but what I will tell you is that for any interview, I will insist that be authentic. Think through your experiences that you have gone through life. Some people feel like they haven't done much, so they don't have much to pull from. But every situation presents, every life challenge presents a situation for you, presents a problem that you can solve. You have solved so many little problems. So think about all those problems that you have gone through and think about what you have done so well to help you get out of those problems. And you will find that you have answers to so many questions. So prepare, your next interview starts today. Do a self-evaluation. Think about all the things you have achieved in life and how you have achieved them. Articulate those points and then find a pattern which defines who you really are and what makes you tick, and then build on those skills. So keep building your skills daily. Even if you don't get a job, whatever opportunity you have, take it. Look for voluntary jobs. I saw questions in the chat around volunteer at PwC. Unfortunately, we always get those requests, but we can't get in we can't take everyone. We can't take volunteers unless we have opportunities where we'll take on volunteers, train them, give them work, and then get value out of them. So we have to assess everyone. We don't just, even if you wanted, we won't take them like that. I saw someone asking actuarial services. Yes, we do provide actuarial services to clients, especially insurance companies. So if you're an actuarial scientist and you're a fresh graduate, please look out for our job opportunities that we are likely to post next year around Feb to April, and then apply for those jobs. Other than that, I really, really wish you the very best. If you don't get a job, there's always opportunities to hustle in life. You will hustle, you'll be successful, and you're all brilliant. So I wish you the very best. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, dear speakers, for sharing with us your information and your knowledge. For now, I'd like to call upon Ms. Lynette Komugisha to give us a vote of thanks. Thank you. Ms. Lynette.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lynette Komugisha, and I currently serve as the Publicity Secretary of the Accounting Students Association of Makerere University. I hope we've all enjoyed this informative session organized for us today. It's my honor and privilege now to give a vote of thanks and to those who made this event happen. I'd wish to express my gratitude to Ms. Shivan Karamera for breaking down the topic of job interviews. What stood out for me today is the STAR model. Describe a situation, tasks undertaken, action taken, and results. And I think this is very important because we need to support the things that we set in our CVs to prove that we're actually the best for these positions. I'd also like to mention our deep sense of appreciation for Ms. Joan Nesta Adoch. Her explanation on how we can excel at aptitude tests was very insightful. What particularly stood out for me today was the different types of tests and how we should focus on our weak areas so that we can excel better at these aptitude tests. I've also learned to look out for feedback because personally, I'm a victim of failing an aptitude test and then complaining and then refreshing our emails rather than looking for feedback and working on that to get better. So once you fail a test, please look out for feedback and work on that so that the next test you don't fail because of the same mistakes that you made previously. So I'm certain that I'm speaking on everyone's behalf when I say that this has been very impactful. So thank you to our speakers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling weeks ago. It requires planning, and we are fortunate enough to have a team of very motivated and dedicated students of Asamu. And I cannot thank the Asamu team enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on tasks to ensure this event was a success. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the student associations and the guild that came on board today. And in a special way, I'd also like to appreciate the mubs ICT department through Mr. Samuel Sandy that always avails us with a platform to hold these events. To all our lecturers, our alumni, the entire student bodies, and even students from other universities, thank you so much for sparing time to come for today's session. Have a lovely weekend.
So in a special way, I'd also like to recognize and thank the Rotaract Club, the Rotaract team for Nakawa mubs. And it's been headed by Mr. Kasami, who engaged in our meeting. Thank you for attending. So before we close this meeting, I'd like to call up Ms. Nantumbwe Brenda to give us a brief talk about how you can create personal finance and earn from your social media platforms. Thank you. Ms. Brenda. Okay, so it seems that Ms. Brenda Nantumbwe has not managed to join the session, but so for now, I'd just like to close our event. Thank you, Ms. Joanesta Adoch and Ms. Shivan Karimera for giving us your valuable time and sharing with us this valuable information. You have opened our eyes upon whatever goes on during interviews and aptitudes. For now, I'd like to bid you adieu and thank everyone for attending. Have a lovely day. This has been your moderator, Trevor Chikambi, Chief of Media, Assam. Goodbye. Thank you.